You're a busy professional. You don't have time for fluff. You need strategies that work, and you need them fast. Welcome to Busy Pro Fast Wellness with me, your host, Alan Welsh. We're here to give you science-backed hacks and actionable tips to boost your focus, minimize friction, and maximize your results. Less time, more impact. It's time to get well, stay strong, and thrive. Let's get to it.
Hello and welcome back to Busy Pro Fast Wellness. Today we're joined by Dr. Kevin Gazzara, who is a leadership expert with nearly 2 decades at Intel Corporation, where he helped develop first-line and mid-level leaders, and 17 years as an entrepreneur and executive coach. Kevin is now the CEO of Magna Leadership Solutions, as well as a positive intelligence coach, university professor, and author of the book, The Leader of Oz. His work focuses on one core idea. Great leaders aren't born, they're built. Today we're touching on how busy professionals can become high-impact leaders, build engaged teams, and make that leap from corporate to something, well, more meaningful. Kevin, welcome so much to Busy Pro Fast Wellness. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing incredibly well, Alan. Thank you so much for sharing me with your listeners. I hope to give them lots of practical tips today.
Oh, thank you. Brilliant. I hope so. I think it's fair to say from having read that introduction that you are probably a high achiever. Would that be fair to say?
I would say, yes, I am kind of in positive intelligence terms. I would say I am a hyperachiever for sure. Yes.
You're a hyperachiever. That's right. And also a high achiever because you have so many accolades and so much experience, and it's obvious that you've achieved a lot throughout your life as well. So brilliant. And my first question really is, what is the fastest way for a busy professional to go from manager to leader?
Well, I think it's pretty simple, actually. If you look at the best leaders in the world, and I've been very, very fortunate, I spent, as you mentioned before, I spent almost 2 decades at Intel. I worked with some of the best managers and leaders in the world, some well-known people. Got to work with Andy Grove in Intel. I've met with John Scully at Apple, and so forth. So I've had a chance to view kind of what they were, the kind of practices that they had as well. But I think the easiest thing is that, the best leaders really have a focus on people, right?
Yes.
It's much more beyond the task. Management is really about kind of managing tasks, and leaders are really about managing the change and managing the change through people. So it's developing the relationships. It's developing them. One of the things that I always did when I was at Intel, when I had a new hire in particular, the very first day they would come into the office and I would meet them, whether it was a new hire from external when I was managing different product lines, or whether it was a new hire that was internal, just had moved. I had 2 points that I made with them in the very first few minutes that I met them. And the first one was, which was a little shocking to them, was I don't want you working for me 18 months from now.
Oh.
Today is the day we're going to talk about your development, and 18 months from now, you should have other opportunities that other people are trying to get you, right? And if that happens, then I've done a good job as a leader, not as a manager, right? And the second thing I would tell them is that, from day one, you need to be thinking at the next level. So every time that you're stuck on a problem, a situation, what I want you to ask yourself is, what would Kevin do, or someone in Kevin's position do, and how would I handle that? So that when you bring challenges to me, we can discuss the challenges. I can give you some ideas, but ultimately, it's more important for me to understand what you think, more so. And I had, early on, particularly new college grads would come in and they'd say, oh, well, I'm having a problem with this chip design or this customer or whatever, and I don't know what to do. And my first question is, have you either need to come in with an idea of what you should do, or if you're stuck, that
Mm,
you've thought through it and you're really stuck at a certain point, you need to be able to expose that thought process. And if you
yeah,
do that, I'm glad to have as many discussions as you would like. But too often they come in and they say, "Oh, I'm stuck on this. This is a difficult client. I'm having this design problem. What should I do?" And if they didn't have that, I would shuffle them out. It's like, okay, you need to go sit down and think through this and expose kind of where you're stuck because it's all about teaching someone to fish as opposed to giving them a
yeah.
fish. So if you can do that as a leader, I think you'll be viewed well as a leader.
Yes, absolutely. So you're giving them the tools really so that they can actually fend for themselves.
Yep.
And yeah, and obviously you would have gleaned, as you mentioned before, you would have gleaned so much knowledge from working with these great icons anyway. So that would rub off on you. Then you can pass that on in turn to other people. And I suppose in that situation, as you say, you would have points when people would turn up and they would clearly not be the right fit for the job because they would be
Mhm.
asking constantly too many questions and then so you can almost sift them out at that point. But as you say, I think it's a very good approach that you had in order to help them help themselves. I think that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked, Alan. It worked really, really well for me. I probably had the highest turnover of any of the product managers. It used to drive my boss crazy. He'd say, people are just leaving your organization constantly. And I said, the difference is this is desired turnover. I want them to leave
Yeah.
because they can go to work in other organizations and contribute at the next level.
Yeah.
And it gives me the opportunity to develop new people. I think the other thing that also drove my managers crazy when I was at Intel is I said, I want to be replaceable as quickly as possible, right? I need to have people. I said, I never wanted to be in a situation where my manager says, oh, we need to downsize the group or we need to change what the focus is. Um, and um, or there's an opportunity for Kevin, but we can't let him go
Mm.
because he's too valuable. So the sooner I could get somebody or multiple people on my staff that could come in and replace me, the more opportunities it gave them and more opportunities it gave me. But I know a lot of my other colleagues, my other friends who were managers didn't share it's
No, well,
like, well,
most people.
if I'm replaceable, then, I
Yeah.
don't have job security.
Well, that's
In
it.
my position,
Yeah,
yeah.
most people wouldn't go along with that idea for sure. Um, because I mean, I've mentioned as a trumpet player, for example, one of the things if I'm playing in a big band, I don't really want to be going and getting a dep in who's going to be a better player than me, ideally. That's just not the natural thing. So what you were doing is rather counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say, well, and my bosses continually reminded me of that. But I will tell you one thing that I think is really curious. Intel didn't have, when we shut divisions down or got out of product lines or, merged divisions, they had something called redeployment. It wasn't unemployment, but basically when your division went away or they merged and, you had multiple people in the same spot. I had that happen when I was managing the 960 chips, which were networking and printer chips. Uh, they came to me and said, um, "We're going to redeploy you first," which means you have 60 days. It's kind of like musical chairs. You have 60
Yeah,
days to go find another job internally, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to do any other work. You just do networking and discussions and look for other opportunities. And I think the interesting thing for me was they had said, Kevin, we're going to redeploy you first in the division. And I thought, well, that's really crazy. I'm was rated as a high performer. I've
yeah,
done really well, and you're going to get rid of me first. And I said, I'd really like to understand why that's the situation. And they said, well, you have such a network because you've had this free flow. There's so many people that
mm,
have worked for you over the past many years that you have networks around the world. And since you've developed them, we think that you're going to be able to get a job much faster for the other people that haven't developed any networks. So,
Okay.
so there was technically a downside, although to me it was really the right thing to do. And
Yeah.
there were many people, design engineers that I had on my staff that truly were great designers, but terrible networkers and really had kind of just been heads down.
Yeah.
And they really needed that extra time. So
Yeah.
they could start looking on day one, and then they didn't get redeployed for several months. So that 60 days really became more like 6 months.
All right. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Great. Let's move on to something which I'm particularly interested in because of my experience, and as we talked about this before, you work with positive intelligence. And for a
Yes.
busy professional, what's the simplest way to build mental fitness under pressure?
Well, I think the first thing is people need to understand what positive intelligence is, right? And
Absolutely.
positive intelligence was written by, there's a book called Positive Intelligence. Highly recommend it. Easy to read, very, very practical. Written by a gentleman by the name of Shirzad Chamine, has done a wonderful job.
Yeah, I've
Um,
listened to it
I,
as an
I,
audiobook. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, it was really good.
it is.
And I took his 6 week program about 5.5 years ago. And then after I took the 6 week program, I took the 26-week program, which was to get certified to teach that. So I've been teaching positive intelligence, and I've done, over 200 people put that through the program. We offer that. But I think the foundational piece that people understand is positive intelligence is really based around the foundation of emotional intelligence. Many
Mm.
people know about EQ that was done by Daniel Goleman and some work by Dr. Howard Gardner. And what Shazad has done, and I've always been a big fan of emotional intelligence, the EQ stuff that Daniel Goleman has done. The
Mm.
difference is that Daniel Goleman's work, I feel, is more descriptive of, now that you know this, how do you move forward? And what Shazad has done is created this kind of operating system that sits on top of the all the great work that was done. This is not a replacement; it's an enhancement to.
Yeah.
And Shirzad's work is really much more descriptive, or sorry,
Yes.
prescriptive than descriptive.
Yes.
So if you want to know, he has some solutions. If you're any one of the have any one of the saboteurs, um, like the kind of the hyperachiever and so forth
Yeah.
attached to you.
Yes, of course. I seem to remember. I mean, I did that course as well, the 6, 7 week course, and I remember being hyper vigilant as one of the things that I
Yeah.
was, as well as yeah. He talks a lot about the judge and the sages, and it was a really fascinating course as well, and also you know. I think if in your book, The Leader of Oz, you talk about above the line thinking as well, and staying open and intentional as well.
Mhm.
So, but in real life, someone stressed or busy, they tend to sort of drop below the line fast, don't they? So,
Yes,
do you
very,
have a kind
very
of
quickly.
a quick way to reset? Can you demonstrate anything? How you would do that, or any of the
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Be glad to do that. Well, the first thing people need to understand is that usually in an incredibly stressful moment, and obviously it depends on the intensity of the stress, that our brain gets flooded with all these chemicals that really keeps us from our ability to think
Mm,
rationally and clearly, right?
yeah.
And the intention is that it's all about speed, and we have to react very, very quickly. And what you really need to do, there's about this 90-second buffer period that you need to take time to get the chemicals flushed out, or at
Mm,
least reduced, if not completely removed, so that you can think clearly. And there's lots and lots of different ways. There's meditation, there's mindfulness activities, there's things that you can do that are tactile.
mm,
You can do breathing, you can do
yeah.
tensing.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of different ways. If anyone wants to just go and Google mindfulness or meditation activities, there's a ton of them. Everyone's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I like the breathing one, works really well for me,
Yeah.
and I use a box breathing.
Yeah.
technique, but I use an enhanced box breathing, something I've developed that works really well for me.
Mm,
And I'll just do this because it'll just take, under 60 seconds
perfect.
here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that when you have that stressful environment or you're about ready to go into the stressful environment, is what I do is I do a box breathing, try to do it for 90 seconds, particularly if I'm just coming out, or 60 seconds before I'm going into the stressful situation. And you breathe in approximately for 5, but I tell people I like to breathe in till I can't get any more breath into me. So it's
Yeah.
really pushing out my chest and filling that up. And it's about a count of 5 or so. But if I
Mm,
haven't reached 5, I continue till it's done. And
yeah.
then you've reached that maximum capacity. Then I hold it for at least 5, hold the
Mm,
breath 5. And then once again, I blow it out completely for about 5.
yeah.
Everybody's a little bit different. And the key is to get it all out. So if you're at 5 and it hasn't come all out, you want to take that extra second or two to push it out. Then
Yeah.
you relax for another 5 seconds or so, and then you repeat the process. But the big difference that I found, Alan, is, and the intention is to flush the chemicals, but also to cut back the mind chatter. And what I found is that many people, including myself, haven't don't have the ability to quiet the mind chatter. So
Mm,
what I found is there's an interesting thing if you study the brain, that the brain's really a serial processor rather than a multiprocessor. Can't really do parallel processing. Is that if as I'm breathing in, and you won't be able to hear it because of the noise canceling on my microphone. As you breathe in, you try to get this singular tone,
yeah.
almost like a whistle, where you
Mm,
hold the pitch and you hold the volume of that, right? Because if you're focusing on the tone as you're breathing, it's impossible to process anything else, right? And
oh,
then you hold it and where
okay.
you're quiet, and then blowing out is the same way, right? So
Yeah.
in through your nose,
Yes.
or actually in this situation, you go in through your mouth and then also out through your mouth.
Okay.
Normally you do it through your nose, but I always found is that if I can maintain that focus on the pitch and the volume, almost like a game,
Mm.
that it flushes the chemicals and at the same time it stops the mind chatter.
Fantastic, because I've done loads of breathing exercises, and but that I've never heard about that tone aspect to it. So that's something new, and many people who have tried these would have tried the box breathing, and it's interesting that you can either go in through the nose or which is more traditional, but you also say that you can also do that. So it's really a personal preference on how you
Yeah,
do that. But that actual
try them
pitch thing,
all.
that pitch thing,
Yeah.
that's something new because I'm always trying to find the most practical ways to develop simple ideas that can be obviously transferred to other people very easily. So I love that the idea that you
Yeah,
brought that one in.
thanks.
I
Yeah,
love
that's
I
something I just stumbled on myself
yeah yeah
because I was doing it, but I couldn't figure out how to get rid of the mind chatter. After doing a little bit more reading, I mean, no one taught me to do this. I just recognized that when I was making some sounds, that my brain immediately went to that rather than
okay.
uh, you know, feeding the mind chatter.
Right, fantastic. My favorite one when I was doing those was the auditory ones. I just loved the being able to listen from a distance to something and then
Mm,
hear something really close up. I don't know, this is the second time, in fact, I had an interview recently that I've had so much noise, and before it was
mm.
the neighbours working away on doing some refurbishments, and just then, I don't know if you noticed, but I've had bells going. They just
No,
sound.
I can't hear
You
any
can't hear anything.
on
I
here.
wonder that the listeners will be able to hear that. It's like it's been constant for the last 5 minutes. The local church. It's like, oh, yeah, the timing. I don't know what it's about. Doesn't normally do that this time. But anyway, so yeah. But the auditory ones were wonderful. I really appreciated those ones as well. So
Yeah.
that's really
Well,
good.
let me give you a tip, or give everybody a tip on that. One of the
Yeah,
women that I coached, that I was an executive coach for, found that the auditory ones worked incredibly well for her. And when I got her to recognize, she says, "Oh, I'm always so busy. I never really have time for these." So I said, you have like a 30-minute commute in the morning.
yeah.
I said, put on a piece of music, and in that music, just pick out one instrument
Mm,
to just focus on and try to cut everything else out.
Yeah.
whether it's a horn or bass or drums or whatever, but don't listen to the music, listen for the instrument.
Brilliant.
And I said, what that will do is that's going to get rid of that mind chatter for you.
Mm.
And she started doing that, and she says, "Man, that is like the best thing I ever do. Every day I just pick out one song." And then she says, "I've also realized, boy, I never really heard that instrument before in the song. It's really amazing."
That's a great tip.
So it
That's a
worked
great tip.
particularly well for
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
That's, as a musician, I love that. I mean, I've heard that tip before as a musician, but I've never thought about likening it into in a mindfulness way. And I think I will be employing that myself because I haven't done that for years. You listen
Yeah.
to that one instrument within whatever it is. It could be a symphony orchestra, it could be a rock group, but you're just listening to that. So
Yeah.
that's really great. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
And you made the leap from corporate to entrepreneurship. So what's the real story behind that transition?
Well, I had a personal goal that I wanted to leave the corporate world when I was 50, right? That I saw, a lot of my friends and people I knew who were waiting till they're 65, and it was really a little bit too late. So I said, hey, I really want to leave the corporate world at 50. I spent almost 30 years, my last 18 years at Intel. Um, and it was a great, wonderful experience.
Yeah,
I wouldn't tell people not to go in the corporate world because I think it provides great networking and learning and opportunities that you won't get in a smaller company or being just an entrepreneur as
mm,
you start off your career life. But I had a personal goal. I wanted to really give back. And, my last 6 years at Intel, I managed Intel's management and leadership development programs for the world. We used to
oh,
do 2,500 managers and leaders in 10 different countries. And
gosh,
when I retired from Intel in 2007, we had just finished training our 40,000th manager. So I
wow,
got really good at that. And it was very exciting. We used to do them, in all the different regions. Unfortunately, I had a big volunteer staff of facilitators to do that. So we
yeah,
used to do 26 programs a year for a full week in the 10 different countries. And and I would do one in each region throughout
yeah,
the year just to stay in touch. But it was a great opportunity. And I really wanted to give back to smaller companies that didn't have $10 million budgets.
yes, I
So real
understand.
quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the 8 Ps that you need to have in order to transition from corporate to
Okay, all right,
to being an entrepreneur.
okay,
Um, and I think and they're somewhat in order. The first one is you need to have some planning.
okay,
So I mean, I had a 10-year plan. You don't have to have a 10-year plan, but a 5-year would be okay. 2 years better, or 2 years is okay.
yeah,
But the key is you have to have a plan of how you're going to get there. And in
good,
order to do the planning, you need these other 7 elements. So the first P is planning. Second one is provisions. You need to have cash or income in order to invest in yourself and the company. And most people don't really think about that. Is that if you're going to leave the corporate world in a nice cushy pay, that's lost opportunity cost. And
yeah,
typically, most entrepreneurs need to do a startup. It's going to take 18 to 24 months. It took us 19 months to get there where it was sustainable. And the
yes,
first 18 months were we had some windfalls, but nothing sustainable. And you have to have that kind of, which takes us to the next one after provisions. You need to have that persistence to be able to do that. And you need to get a coach or a mentor or somebody to really help guide you, trying to not do it on your own. So,
yeah, no,
so
I agree with
planning,
you. I agree with you.
persistence.
Can I just
Yeah,
stop you at that moment because you've got
oh,
to the third
sure,
point there? No, just because obviously the provision side of it. I mean, what you're saying effectively is that you need some sort of buffer in
you
order to.
do.
Yeah, you need a buffer. So you would need a sort of sum of money which you could think feasibly live off. Know that you have enough to live off for maybe a year or something, at least. Yeah,
At
at
least,
least.
yeah.
Okay.
And many
Yeah.
many people, Alan, that call me, people that I've met or have, ex Intel colleagues will call and say, "Hey, I got downsized, or I'm thinking about leaving, or whatever." My first
Mm,
question is how much how much money are you willing to invest in yourself?
Well, no,
So
absolutely. Yeah, I know this because I mean, and I know what that third point as well is so pertinent because if it gets you to the destination much faster if you can pay somebody to help you, pay a mentor, do something like that. Otherwise, you're just like groping around, struggling to do this, and you'll either give up or just be you'll flounder in the process. That's a normal way. It takes somebody very, very unique to get
yeah,
through all that. Yeah. So yeah, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and being an entrepreneur has been, is wonderful because you have that ability of flexibility. But at the same point in time, you have to think about it, just use raw numbers. If you're making 10,000 a month, and you need to, figure that you're not going to make anything for 18 to 24 months, that's 180 to $240,000. I mean, you're
Yeah.
almost investing $250,000 in yourself as a product.
Yeah.
Most people don't think about that. I think most of the phone calls I get are, "Hey, I got downsized. I've got 4 or 5 months of salary, but I want to do what you want to do, what you're doing." And I say, start looking for the job right now, because if
Yeah.
if at 4 months haven't you haven't gotten enough sustainable
Mm,
income, you're going to start either taking things that don't make sense,
yeah.
or you're going to spend all of your time with that extra mind chatter,
Yeah.
worrying about, oh, how am I going to make mortgage payments and
Yeah. For sure. For
car
sure.
payments, etc.
Great.
So, all right. Well, let me just finish these real quick so we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
get to
Please.
other
We're
questions.
going to go on to point four.
Sure. Yeah.
P4.
So planning, provisions, persistence. You need to have a unique product. Like, what
Okay.
makes you unique? What I call about your sustainable competitive advantage. What's different about you?
Mm,
And I do this activity with people that call me. It's like, tell me why I should hire you, and they all
mm,
say the same thing. I got great experience. Here's my education. Bing, bing, bing. I just let them talk, and then I say, okay, what's the next person going to tell me that I interview that's different than what you told me? And
yeah.
most of the time, it's the same thing. So figure out what your sustainable competitive advantage is, what makes you different.
Okay.
And that's really yours as the product. That's the fourth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to have presence on social media. You need to have people, which is a network.
Mm,
You need to have a publication, right? You need to publish either a book or a series of articles or whatever to demonstrate your expertise.
mm,
And then the last one thing that you need, item number 8, is you need to partner, as you had mentioned earlier. You need to partner with someone that you can add value to, as opposed to replace them. But
mm,
most people want is it's like, hey, let me come and work for you for a day, and I can charge $5,000 or $10,000 and then take the rest of the month off. Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. And usually, unless I am completely overloaded, that work that is going to come in for me, I'm going to take, as opposed to giving it to someone else. So,
yeah.
but come in and augment what people are doing. We partnered very, very early on with someone that an organization that did negotiating uh, and conflict management and influence. And we didn't have anything like that, so it was a good augmentation to us.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any of the leadership stuff. So together we just co-branded everything. They had their customers, we had our customers. They had a whole lot more because they were doing it for 25 years,
Mm,
and we were able to add value to them. And then as we got new customers, we bring their materials in. So it really, really worked well. But the key is partner with someone where you're going to add value as opposed to replicate their work.
fantastic. You're obviously a total business guru in that sense that you've looked at all of this, and I'm learning things a lot, and I need to learn as well in the business world because I'm I would say I'm pretty useless in that area. So it's good to hear all these different things. I've written down those 8 P's for sure, and I know where I'm lacking on those straight away. So it's good to have clarity. Thank you very
Well,
much.
well, most people, the thing I tell most people is most people really don't like doing the business development. I'd
Yeah.
say 90% of coaches or consultants, entrepreneurs, really want to just execute their expertise, whether it's a coach or
Yeah.
efficiency expert or whatever it is, and they don't
Mm,
want to do the business development. And my point to them is, now I like doing the business development, so I was an advantage to the three of us that when
Yeah.
we left the corporate world. But if you don't like doing the business development, you have to be able to say, I am going to invest
Yeah.
in a coach or a consultant or somebody. I
Yeah.
need to figure that into the money that I'm not going to be making. And if you're
Absolutely.
not willing to invest that and you think you're just going to do it, you're on your own,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's going to take you a whole lot longer to get to the sustainability piece.
No, totally. I'm totally with you on that one. And I've looked in, and I've done that. I've invested as well myself. As much as I possibly can, because it makes sense. It really does. So thank you for sharing all that. I have something which I'd like to do. It's a rapid fire segment, and it
Okay.
really is just a quick thing, like 90 seconds. And it's like you can just give like a sentence answer or a one word answer even. Leader
Okay.
or manager? What's one word that separates them? Leader,
People.
people.
People for leaders, task for managers.
Great, brilliant. Best way to motivate an unmotivated employee?
Find out how to get them into flow, and that's get them into the zone. Listen to the things they have that are interesting to them.
Okay, that brings me to another question later on. And before we get there, one habit that builds mental fitness fast.
Um, I think that I think doing recognizing when you have stress
Yeah,
and when you're going into or coming out of stress is just do the breathing thing that we talked about earlier. Easy
yeah,
to do, a minute to 90 seconds, that's all you need.
good. So that's a sort of self-reflection thing, isn't it? And knowing that you are in that state at that time. Great. And then flow, overrated or essential? Flow.
100% essential. I did all of my doctoral work on flow,
Did you?
on understanding how to get people into flow.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to be able to work with the author of Flow, Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He helped me as a committee member on my when I did my doctoral dissertation, and a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he helped me develop the assessment that we're going to give away, right, for anyone
Brilliant.
that's been persistent enough to listen to me chatter on until the end here.
Yeah, we are going to do that. So, and I'm just mention that if anybody wants to explore further, because as Kevin has a quick mental fitness assessment that anybody can try, and it takes a couple of minutes. Is that right to
Yeah,
do that?
yeah, you'll be able
And
to do it in under 5 minutes, and it'll give
good,
you an idea of what your task preferences are, and if you can create that balance and mixture and cadence
yeah,
throughout your day, we know statistically that it'll raise your level of job satisfaction, motivation, and also empowerment, where you feel more in control.
brilliant, brilliant. So it gives you that kind of that sort of that snapshot into how
Yes.
you're showing up under pressure, for example. Yeah, that's really good. So this is actually a free gift that you can get, and I'm going to just give you what you need.
Gift.
So www forward slash magnaleader.co forward slash gift, which is in
Right. And not,
capitals.
not com. That's the key, is it has to be .co,
Yeah,
not
dot
.com.
co dot yeah, and I'll put it in the show notes anyway. So that's it.
Sure.
So I'd like to. And how else can people get in contact if they think, oh, I like the idea of getting in contact with Kevin? What's the best way?
Probably the best way is you can send me a direct email. Send it to Kevin, Kevin, at Magna Leader.
Okay.
Sorry, at magnaleadership.com. Right. So
Okay.
that's my email address, Kevin at magnaleadership.com.
Yeah.
And my promise to anyone, if you'd like to talk about anything, expand what we talked about today on Alan's show here, is I promise you 100%. You'll get no sales pitch from me. I don't do sales pitches. I'm not going to try to get you as a client. If I can help you, great. And if you want more extended help and you'd like to invest together in
Yeah.
yourself, I'd be glad to have that discussion. But you're not going to get a sales pitch from me.
Yeah. Great. And I think it's that the Shearzard PQ course is really, really worth that minuscule investment in anyway, because that's worth doing. I think it's absolutely brilliant, of course. So anyway, thank you so much. And so to everybody out here, every time you catch yourself in a scattered mood, in a state of flux, then you reset. You're not just improving your mindset, you're becoming a better leader. I'd like to thank Kevin, Dr. Kevin Gazzara, for joining me today. Thank you, Kevin. And
my pleasure.
Yeah. And everybody out there, all the best and goodbye from Busy Pro Fast Wellness. Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Well, I hope you got as much out of that conversation as I did. I thought it was really interesting how Kevin combined the practical realities of leadership and business with the mental fitness side of things as well. There was certainly plenty there for me to think about. As always, you'll find the links and resources in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, like, share the episode, all those types of things. And I'll catch you in the next episode of Busy Pro Fast Wellness. All the best and goodbye for now.